All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to get into talking about the Chargers and their season and what they've done in the offseason so far. And this was Jim Harbaugh's first season as the head coach of the Chargers, and it went well. They exceeded expectations. I had them winning 9 games, and, well, I forgot to mention the Raiders. I had them winning 8 games. They won 4. So that shows you how much I know about football. But because I know some people definitely say that. With the Chargers, I had them at 9 wins and they won 10. So I was close. I said they could be a sneaky good team. They could maybe make the postseason, and that's exactly what happened. They won 10 games and they made the postseason. Now the playoff game did not go very well, but we'll get into that. We will get into that. Now they bring in Jim Harbaugh. They did, make some changes with the offense, right? Austin Eckler left in free agency. Mike Williams went to the Jets. Keenan Allen went to the Bears. So they pretty much gutted the offense. And, Quentin Johnson, they were expecting big things out of him in year 2, and he definitely looked better, a lot better than he did his rookie season. Joshua Palmer, who was hurt. But they did draft Ladd McConkey from Georgia, and he was obviously their best receiver. So to kind of look at how the Chargers season unfolded, the regular season, got off to a 2-0 start. They beat the Raiders and they beat up on the Panthers. And that was also behind running the football because J.K. Dobbins, who they brought in, and Gus Edwards reunited them with Greg Roman, who used to be with the Ravens. So, yeah, it was Ravens backfield on the Chargers. But then they did lose to the Steelers. They lost their next 2 games. They lost to the Steelers 20-10. Justin Herbert did get hurt in that game, so maybe if he doesn't get hurt, that game would have been a different outcome. But yeah, they lost that, and then they lost to the Chiefs 17-10, a close game there. So they went into the bye week at 2-2. Then they came out of the bye. They beat Bo Nix. They were up 23-0 going into the fourth quarter, and the Broncos did make it a little bit closer. They did score 16 points in the fourth quarter, but yeah, they did lose that. But then they also lost to the Cardinals on that Monday night game. I'll be honest, didn't watch a single second of it because it was on ESPN Plus, and I don't have ESPN Plus. And you're probably like, what are you doing? Well, I am paying for a couple of other streaming services, so I do have access to SiriusXM, so I was able to listen to the final call at the end. But yeah, they lost 17-15 on a game-winning field goal. So yeah, at that point, they were 3-3. But then they won their next 4 straight. Their next 4 games. I meant to say I combined. They won 4 straight with their next 4 games. They won 4 straight. They beat the Saints 26-8. They beat the Browns 27-10. They beat the Titans 27-17, and they beat the Bengals 34-27. The Bengals game was on Sunday Night Football. That was a very entertaining game. Bengals, they were down big, came back, but they weren't able to take the lead. They missed some field goals down the stretch there by Evan McPherson. And, J.K. Dobbins scored the go-ahead touchdown, and the Chargers won 34-27. They did lose to the Ravens 30-23, the Harbaugh Bowl. But then they beat the Falcons in a low-scoring game 17-13. I mean, they were helped by Kirk Cousins throwing 4 interceptions in the game. But then they lost their next 2. They lost to the Chiefs 19-17 on a doink game-winning field goal. And then they lost 40-17 to the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield throwing 4 touchdowns in that game. But then they won their final 3 games. They beat the Broncos in a comeback win on Thursday night, 34-27. They really beat up on the Patriots in the NFL Network triple header on December 28th, 40-7, and then they beat the Raiders 34-20. And Justin Herbert had a good year, 23 touchdowns to 3 picks. 3,800 yards passing. J.K. Dobbins in the regular season, he had 905 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns. Did get hurt, but he was able to come back for the playoff game. We'll talk about that in a second. Quentin Johnston, again, had a better season than he did his rookie year. 711 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. The drops were still a little bit of a problem. But yeah, Ladd McConkey, though, 1,149 receiving yards, 82 receptions, and 7 touchdowns. He was the best player on offense outside of Justin Herbert. But yeah, they won 34-20, and they made the playoffs, and they went up against the Texans, and everybody was all over the Chargers. And I knew when that was the case, I said, that is not good. That is not good that everybody is taking the Chargers. Everybody's disrespecting the Texans. Now, they were up 6-0 going into the second quarter, but then things changed, right? Things changed. C.J. Stroud, there was that bobbled snap. He picked it up. He completed the pass. A long pass to, I think it was Nico Collins, and that was a momentum shifter. And Justin Herbert was not good in this game. He went 14 of 32 for 242 yards, 1 touchdown, which was on like a 3rd and forever to Ladd McConkey. But he threw 4 interceptions in the game. Now, all of them were not his fault, but turned the ball over 4 times. Yeah, Ladd McConkey was unreal. Almost had 200 yards receiving. He had 9 receptions for 197 yards and a touchdown. The Chargers could not run the ball in this game. The defense did get after C.J. Stroud. They sacked him 3 times, but yeah, the Texans had their way, especially in the ground game. They ran the ball for 168 yards. Nico Collins had a good game, but yeah, not good. There was a pick 6 in the game that was by Eric Murray, and yeah, Justin Herbert really hurt it. 3 interceptions throughout the whole year, and then he threw 4 picks in this one game. But, the Chargers, they were not, I didn't expect them to make a deep playoff run. I thought that maybe they could advance just because, we weren't overly impressed with the Texans throughout the season, right? But, the Texans, they beat up on the Chargers and they got the win. So that's how the Chargers season ended. They went 10-7. Had a good divisional record. They went 4-2, and the 2 losses were against the Chiefs. So, but looking at their rankings on both offense and defense. So offensively, they were 11th in points per game. So that's pretty good. But they were 20th in total yards per game, 19th in passing yards per game, and 17th in rushing yards per game. And then defensively, this Chargers defense was not good in 2023. And I knew when Harbaugh came in, things were going to change. So their defense, they ranked 1st in points allowed per game, 11th in yards allowed per game. They were 7th in passing yards allowed per game. They were 14th in rushing yards allowed per game, and they struggled to stop the run in the playoff game against the Texans. They ranked 7th in sacks, and they were 8th in interceptions. Defense, like I said, the defense was solid for them. And, the defense did the best they could keeping them in the game, but, the Chargers just could not generate any offense. And that's where they needed to improve, is the receiving core. The receiving core is what they needed to improve upon. Again, looking at the stats, we talked about Herbert, we talked about Dobbins and the receivers, but looking at the defensive side of the ball, Derwin James, 5.5 sacks. Khalil Mack had 6 sacks. They brought him back. They did release Joey Bosa. You also had 6 sacks from Bud Dupree. Joey Bosa had 5. But yeah, Joey Bosa went to Buffalo. Tariq Still, he had 4 interceptions on the season. That led the team. And, looking at what they've done in the offseason so far, they signed Tyler Conklin, brought him in, the tight end. They brought in Najee Harris to replace J.K. Dobbins. They brought in Mekhi Becton, Andre James, a center. They brought in a couple of tackles in Naquan Jones and Deshaun Hand. Dante Jackson, they brought him in. The corner, Tony Jefferson, they re-signed him. They re-signed Khalil Mack. They re-signed Denzel Perriman. Re-signed Jalen Reagor. So, they were busy in the offseason. And they did bring back Mike Williams. Now, I still am holding out hope that they are going to bring back Keenan Allen because I feel like they should. Keenan Allen is still unsigned, but I would like to see Keenan Allen back with the Chargers. I really would. So we got to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, I would like to see Keenan Allen back with Herbert. But yeah, they desperately need that. And the Chargers, if they don't bring back Keenan Allen, I think, wide receiver is a position they could definitely address at some point. Right? I do think they could do that. The offensive line, like I said, they've addressed that, in free agency, bringing Mekhi Becton, who was good when, he got moved into the interior part of the offensive line. You got 2 tackles in, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. So, Herbert's good at the tackle spot. The interior of the offensive line, you improve that. Running back is definitely something that I could see Well, actually, then again, they did bring in Najee Harris, but they could still draft a running back. That could happen at some point. Defensively, maybe they go out and they try to add a pass rusher, in the draft. Defense, maybe linebacker. Yeah, I could see that, but you're set with tackles. You're set at quarterback. Now it's all about getting more playmakers. I think on offense, and I think continue to build up that defense. But this is going to be a very good team. I do believe that. Jim Harbaugh, like I said, did a very good job his first year as the head coach of the Chargers, and this AFC West, I mean, we're going to continue to talk about it because obviously we got two more teams left. We'll get to the Broncos and the Chiefs next week, but this is a very good division. The coaches that we got, and the quarterbacks, it's a good division. It is. It's what we expected it to be a couple years ago. I mean, obviously Geno Smith is now with the Raiders, and he's unfortunately I rank him last amongst the quarterbacks, but really the head coaches are the story. Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and Pete Carroll. I mean, that really is one heck of a division for coaches. But let me know what you guys think though about the Chargers and their season, the offseason. How would you grade their offseason? Let me know in the comments. That is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to everything wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you're on the go, make sure to check us out on Spotify and, like I said, wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back again on Monday, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in for the Final Four. This weekend, NBA season is winding down. Baseball is in full effect, and maybe Aaron Rodgers will sign with the team when we come back on Monday, or sign with the Steelers. But we're still waiting on that. That's not going to happen. So with that being said, we're done here. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. Enjoy the games this weekend. Take care.